And a clean start. Alfred is out. Liston in 5. Sears in lane 3. Julien Alfred. Outstanding close. Great race. 6:99 for Julien Alfred.
For more than 30 years, one record has stood untouched. The fastest women in history have chased it. Olympic champions have come close. World champions have fallen short. Yet somehow, those final fractions of a second have refused to give way. Now, a young sprinter from one of the smallest countries on earth is forcing the entire athletics world to look again. She wasn't born into a nation famous for producing sprint legends. She didn't grow up surrounded by world-class training facilities or generations of Olympic champions. Instead, she came from a Caribbean island with fewer than 200,000 people, a place that had never celebrated an Olympic gold medal in its history. But against every expectation, Julien Alfred has transformed herself into one of the most electrifying athletes on the planet. What makes her story even more remarkable is the person who inspired it all. As a child, Julien watched Usain Bolt rewrite the limits of human speed. Like millions of others, she dreamed of following in his footsteps. Years later, she isn't just winning races, she's chasing history itself, running times that have placed her within touching distance of one of the oldest records in track and field. But that isn't the most incredible part of this story. Behind every medal lies a journey marked by heartbreak, sacrifice, and impossible decisions that almost ended her career before it truly began. The world sees the victories. Do you know the pain that came first? So how did a girl from a tiny island become one of the fastest women alive? And could she really be the athlete who finally rewrites history? The answer begins long before the finish line ever comes into view. Long before the Olympic spotlight found Julien Alfred, she was simply a young girl growing up in Cicerone, a community in Castries on the Caribbean island of St. Lucia. It's a beautiful country known for its mountains, beaches, and vibrant culture, but not for producing world-famous sprinters. For decades, athletes from St. Lucia competed with determination, yet the nation had never celebrated an Olympic medal. On the global stage, sprinting was dominated by countries with deep traditions, elite facilities, and generations of champions. Julien's journey into athletics wasn't part of some carefully designed master plan. In fact, her talent was discovered almost by accident. According to accounts from her early years, a school librarian noticed something unusual. During recess, Julien wasn't just playing with her classmates. She was racing the boys and often beating them with ease. It didn't take long for the adults around her to realize that this wasn't ordinary childhood energy. There was something special about her speed. Soon, she joined a local track program, where Coach Cuthbert Modest began helping her develop the raw talent that had first caught everyone's attention. Even at a young age, Julien stood out. She possessed natural acceleration, remarkable determination, and an eagerness to improve every time she stepped onto the track. But just as her future seemed to be opening up, tragedy struck. When Julien was only 12 years old, her father passed away. For most children, losing a parent is an unimaginable emotional blow. Suddenly, the sport she once loved no longer felt important. Grief overshadowed everything. Running no longer brought joy. According to those close to her journey, she even stepped away from athletics for a period, unsure whether she wanted to continue at all. Looking back, this may have been the moment that defined her future more than any race ever could. Many promising young athletes possess talent. Far fewer find the strength to continue after experiencing profound personal loss. Family members, coaches, teachers, and friends encouraged Julien not to give up. Slowly, she found her way back onto the track, not because the pain had disappeared, but because running became a way to move forward without forgetting where she had come from. Then came a decision that would change her life forever. At just 14 years old, Julien left St. Lucia and moved to Jamaica to continue her athletic development. Imagine what that meant. A teenager leaving behind her family, friends, and the only home she had ever known to pursue a dream with no guarantees of success. For many young athletes, moving away from home is difficult even with scholarships or relatives waiting on the other side. Julien had neither certainty nor comfort. She entered a completely different environment where competition was relentless and expectations were incredibly high. And that environment couldn't have been more demanding. She enrolled at St. Catherine High School, where she competed in Jamaica's legendary ISSA Boys and Girls Championships. Around the world, track and field fans recognize this meet as one of the toughest high school competitions anywhere. Countless Olympic medalists and world champions have emerged from those races. For Julien, every practice became an education. She wasn't simply training harder. She was learning what excellence looked like every single day. Surrounded by athletes who had grown up in one of sprinting's greatest nations, she quickly realized that natural talent alone would never be enough. To compete at the highest level, discipline had to become part of her identity. Around this time, another powerful influence continued shaping her dream. Like countless young sprinters across the Caribbean, Julien watched Usain Bolt redefine what seemed possible. Bolt didn't just break world records. He transformed the imagination of an entire generation. He proved that athletes from small Caribbean nations could stand at the very top of world sport. For Julien, his success wasn't simply inspiring. It was deeply personal. If someone from the Caribbean could become the fastest man in history, then perhaps impossible dreams weren't impossible after all. That belief fueled her through the hardest days of training. The sacrifices soon began producing results. Julien emerged as one of the brightest young sprint talents in the region. In 2018, she represented St. Lucia at the Youth Olympic Games in Buenos Aires and captured a silver medal in the 100 meters, the country's first ever medal at that competition. To many people watching, it was an impressive achievement. But for Julien, it represented something much bigger. It was proof that the little girl, who almost walked away from the sport after losing her father, was now competing among the best young athletes in the world. The dream that once seemed so distant was becoming reality. Still, this was only the beginning. Winning at the youth level is one thing. Becoming one of the fastest women on earth is something entirely different. Ahead of her lay even greater challenges, tougher rivals, and moments that would test every ounce of belief she had built over the years. And before Julien Alfred could become an Olympic champion, she would have to prove that her remarkable rise was no accident. Leaving Jamaica marked the beginning of an even bigger challenge. Julien Alfred accepted a scholarship to the University of Texas, one of the most respected track and field programs in the United States. For many athletes, reaching a top NCAA program is already a dream come true. But Julien wasn't satisfied with simply competing. She wanted to become the best sprinter she could possibly be, even if that meant pushing herself beyond every limit she had ever known. The transition wasn't easy. She was once again far from home, adapting to a new country, a new coaching system, and a level of competition unlike anything she had experienced before. Every training session was filled with elite athletes chasing the same goal. There was no room for complacency. Every fraction of a second mattered. Then, just as her career was gaining momentum, the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the sporting world. Competitions were canceled. Training schedules changed overnight. Athletes everywhere faced uncertainty about when they would race again. For someone building toward international success, it could have been a devastating setback. Instead, Julien treated the interruption as another obstacle to overcome. While others wondered what would happen next, she focused on improving every part of her game. Her starts became sharper. Her acceleration became more explosive. Every workout brought her one step closer to the athlete she believed she could become. The breakthrough finally arrived in 2023. At the Big 12 Indoor Championships, Julien made history by becoming the first woman in NCAA history to run under 7 seconds in the 60 meters, crossing the line in an astonishing 6.97 seconds. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement to the entire athletics world. 2 weeks later, she somehow went even faster. At the NCAA Indoor Championships, Julien produced one of the greatest performances ever seen in collegiate sprinting. She won the 60-meter title in 6.94 seconds before returning later the same day to capture the 200-meter championship as well. Winning one national title is extraordinary. Winning 2 sprint titles on the same day is almost unheard of. But what truly stunned the track and field community wasn't just the double victory. Her 6.94-second run placed her alongside the fastest women in history, just 0.02 of a second behind the long-standing world record. Suddenly, Julien Alfred wasn't simply a promising college athlete anymore. She had become one of the quickest women the sport had ever seen. The headlines spread quickly. Athletics experts praised her explosive starts. Former champions admired her composure under pressure. Fans who had never heard her name before suddenly began asking the same question: who is Julien Alfred? Yet the biggest test was still waiting. Later that year, Julien stepped onto one of the sport's biggest stages at the World Athletics Championships. This was completely different from college competition. Every lane was filled with experienced professionals who had already won Olympic and World Championship medals. She raced with courage and determination. But when the finals were over, Julien narrowly missed the podium, finishing 5th in the 100 meters and 4th in the 200. For many athletes, those results would still represent an incredible achievement. For Julien, they became motivation. The disappointment wasn't about failing. It was about realizing just how close she already was to the very best. The gap between standing on the podium and watching someone else celebrate was incredibly small. Media coverage reflected that reality. Some analysts called her one of the brightest young stars in sprinting. Others wondered whether she needed more experience before she could consistently defeat the world's elite. Fans debated whether she would become St. Lucia's first Olympic medalist or whether the pressure would prove too great. Julien never responded through headlines. She responded through training. Every near miss became another reason to work harder. Every criticism became another reminder that greatness isn't built in moments of comfort. It's built during the mornings when nobody is watching, during exhausting workouts, and during the countless hours spent chasing improvements measured in hundredths of a second. Behind every sprint was a story of sacrifice. She had already endured personal loss, moved away from home as a teenager, adapted to multiple countries, and carried the hopes of an entire nation that had never witnessed Olympic success. Those experiences gave her something many athletes never develop: an unshakable resilience. Looking back, the World Championships weren't the end of her journey. They were the final lesson she needed. Because over the next 12 months, everything would change. The young woman who had narrowly missed a medal on the world stage was about to return stronger, faster, and more determined than ever before. And when the Olympic Games arrived, Julien Alfred wouldn't simply compete for St. Lucia. She would rewrite the history of her nation forever. When the world arrived in Paris for the 2024 Olympic Games, the spotlight naturally fell on the biggest names in sprinting. Analysts debated the favorites, television panels predicted familiar champions, and millions of fans expected another unforgettable battle for Olympic gold. Julien Alfred wasn't being ignored, but she wasn't the center of every prediction either. That changed in less than 11 seconds. The moment the starting gun fired for the women's 100-meter final, Alfred exploded out of the blocks with remarkable composure. Every stride looked effortless, every step more powerful than the last. As the finish line approached, it became clear that something extraordinary was unfolding. Julien Alfred crossed the line first. With a national record of 10.72 seconds, she didn't just win an Olympic gold medal. She gave St. Lucia its first Olympic medal of any kind. Gold, silver, or bronze, the country had never stood on an Olympic podium before that unforgettable night in Paris. In an instant, history changed. Across St. Lucia, celebrations erupted. Streets filled with cheering fans. Schools paused lessons. Families gathered around televisions to witness a moment many believed they would never see. For one small Caribbean nation, Julien Alfred had accomplished something generations of athletes had dreamed about but never achieved. And she wasn't finished. Just days later, Alfred returned to the track for the 200 meters and earned an Olympic silver medal, proving that her success in the 100 wasn't a one-race miracle. She had officially established herself among the very best sprinters in the world. The response back home was unforgettable. The government declared September 27, 2024, as Julien Alfred Day, honoring the athlete who had forever changed the nation's sporting history. It was more than a celebration of medals. It was recognition that one young woman had inspired an entire country to believe that world-class success was possible, regardless of size or resources. But champions don't spend long looking backward. After reaching the top of the Olympic podium, Alfred quickly turned her attention to new goals. Rather than becoming satisfied with Olympic gold, she continued chasing one of the most difficult records in athletics, the women's indoor 60-meter world record. That record belongs to Irina Privalova, whose 6.92-second performance has stood for more than 3 decades. Many exceptional sprinters have attempted to break it. None have succeeded. Yet Alfred has come astonishingly close. Her personal best of 6.94 seconds leaves her just 0.02 seconds away from history. In sprinting, that margin is almost impossible to imagine. It's the blink of an eye. A slightly quicker reaction, one cleaner step out of the blocks, or a fraction more acceleration could make all the difference. In 2026, Alfred once again demonstrated why many believe she remains one of the strongest candidates to challenge that historic mark. She opened her indoor season with world-leading performances and consistently ran under 7 seconds, reinforcing her status among the fastest women on Earth. Although she didn't lower her personal best, each race reminded the athletics world that she remains firmly in contention whenever she steps onto the track. What makes her story so remarkable isn't just her speed. It's the path she took to get there. She lost her father at a young age. She temporarily walked away from athletics while grieving. She left home at 14 to pursue better competition in another country. She adapted to life in Jamaica, then the United States, continually pushing herself against stronger opponents. At every stage, she faced challenges that might have convinced others to quit. Instead, every obstacle became another chapter in her journey. There's also a fascinating connection that brings this story full circle. As a child, Julien Alfred watched Usain Bolt dominate the sport. She has spoken openly about how his achievements inspired her to dream bigger than anyone thought possible. Bolt showed the world that a sprinter from a Caribbean nation could become a global icon. Now, Alfred is doing something remarkably similar for St. Lucia. Young children growing up on the island no longer have to imagine whether an athlete from their country can become an Olympic champion. They have proof. They have someone whose journey mirrors their own. Someone who proved that greatness doesn't depend on where you're born. It depends on how relentlessly you're willing to chase your dream. Looking ahead, the future is filled with possibilities. The 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles could offer Alfred the chance to defend her Olympic title against a new generation of challengers. Meanwhile, every indoor season presents another opportunity to attack that elusive 60-meter world record. Will she eventually break it? No one can say with certainty. Records this historic are never guaranteed to fall. They demand perfect preparation, flawless execution, and sometimes a little bit of magic on race day. But perhaps that's what makes Julien Alfred's story so compelling. She's no longer chasing recognition. She's chasing history. And whether or not she ultimately rewrites the record books, one thing has already been secured forever. A little girl from St. Lucia transformed unimaginable dreams into reality, inspired millions across the world, and reminded us that sometimes the most extraordinary stories begin in the places nobody is watching. For Julien Alfred, the finish line has never truly been the end. It has always been the starting point for something even greater. What an incredible journey this has been. From a young girl in St. Lucia who almost walked away from athletics after experiencing heartbreaking loss, to an Olympic champion inspiring millions around the world, Julien Alfred's story proves that greatness isn't determined by where you come from. It's determined by the courage to keep moving forward when life tests you the most. Now we'd love to hear from you. Do you think Julien Alfred will eventually break the women's 60-meter indoor world record? And perhaps an even bigger question, can she successfully defend her Olympic 100-meter title at the 2028 Los Angeles Games? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read your comments, and we'd love to know what you think. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more powerful stories about the world's greatest athletes, unforgettable sporting moments, and the incredible journeys behind the headlines, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next documentary. Thank you for reading. Until next time, remember this: records may define history, but it's the journey behind them that truly inspires the world.